Welcome to the video lecture of Food Process Technology. I am Dr. Remya, Associate Professor, Department of Industrial Biotechnology. Today's topic is about dehydration. Dehydration is defined as the application of heat under controlled conditions to remove the majority of water normally present in a food by evaporation. So this definition excludes other unit operations which remove water from foods. And for example, like mechanical separations and membrane concentration, evaporation and baking, as these normally remove much less water than dehydration. So the main purpose of dehydration is to extend the shelf life of foods by a reduction in water activity. This inhibits microbial growth and enzyme activity, but the processing temperature is usually insufficient to cause their inactivation. Therefore, any increase in moisture content during storage, for example, due to faulty packaging, will result in rapid spoilage. The reduction in weight and bulk of food reduces transport and storage costs too. So for some types of food, dehydration provides a convenient product for the consumer or more easily handled ingredients for food processors. Drying causes deterioration of both eating quality and the nutritional value of food. The design and operation of dehydration equipment, they aim to minimize these dangers by selection of appropriate drying conditions for individual foods. Examples of commercially important dried foods are coffee, milk, raisins, pasta, flours, that include bakery mixes also, then beans, pulses, nuts, breakfast cereals, etc. So examples of important dried ingredients that are used by manufacturers include egg powder, flavorings and colorings, lactose, sucrose or fructose powder, enzymes and yeast. There are a large number of factors that control the rate at which foods dry that can be grouped into these many categories. That is, those related to the processing conditions, those related to nature of the food, and those related to the dryer designs. So here we'll see about drying using heat air. First is about psychrometrics. So there are three interrelated factors that control the capacity of air to remove moisture from a food. First is the amount of water vapor already carried by the air. The second is air temperature. The third is the amount of air that passes over the food. So the amount of water vapor in air is expressed as absolute humidity or as moisture content or relative humidity, RH. These terms we have discussed earlier. The psychrometry is the study of interrelated properties of water air systems. These properties that are represented on a psychrometric chart too. So here the heat from drying air is absorbed by food and provides the latent heat needed to evaporate water from the surface. The temperature of the air measured by a thermometer bulb is termed the dry bulb temperature. If the thermometer bulb is surrounded by a wet cloth, heat is removed by evaporation of water from the cloth and the temperature falls. So this lower temperature is called wet bulb temperature. The difference between the two temperatures is used to find the relative humidity of air on the psychrometric chart. An increase in air temperature or reduction in relative humidity that cause water to evaporate more rapidly from a wet surface and therefore produces a greater fall in temperature. The dew point is the temperature at which air becomes saturated with moisture. That is about 100% relative humidity. and any further cooling from this point results in condensation of the water from the air. Next, we'll see about the mechanism of drying. The third factor that controls the rate of drying in addition to air temperature and humidity is the air velocity. So when hot air is blown over a wet food, water vapor diffuses through a boundary film of air surrounding the food and is carried away by the moving air. That could be seen in this figure. So a water vapor pressure gradient is established from the moist interior of the food to the dry air. This gradient provides the driving force for water removal from the food. The boundary film acts as a barrier to both heat transfer and water vapor removal during drying. The thickness of the film is determined primarily by air velocity. If the velocity is low, the boundary film is thicker, and this reduces both the heat transfer coefficient and the rate of removal of water vapor. Water vapor leaves the surface of the food and increases humidity of the surrounding air to cause a reduction in water vapor pressure gradient and hence the rate of drying. Therefore, the faster the air, the thinner the boundary film, and hence the faster the rate of drying. So there are the three characteristics of air that are necessary for successful drying when the food is moist are moderately high dry bulb temperature. Second one is a low relative humidity and a high air velocity. Next, we will see about constant rate period. When food is placed into a dryer, there is a short initial settling down period as the surface of heats rises to the wet bulb temperature. So here in the figure, you can see the first one, A to B in figure first. Drying then commences and provided water moves from the interior of the food at the same rate as it evaporates from the surface and the surface remains wet. This is known as constant rate period and continues until a certain critical moisture content is reached. That you can see from B to C, both the figures. So the surface temperature of the food remains close to the wet bulb temperature of the drying air until the end of constant rate period due to cooling effect of the evaporating water. So different areas of the food surface dry out at different rates. So overall, the rate of drying declines gradually towards the end of constant rate period. So next, we'll see about falling rate period. When the moisture content of the food falls below the critical moisture content, the rate of drying slowly decreases until it approaches zero value at the equilibrium moisture content. So that is the food comes into equilibrium with the drying air. This is known as falling rate period. So during the falling rate periods, the rate of water movement from the interior to the surface falls below the rate at which water evaporates to the surrounding air and the surface therefore dries out. So if the same amount of heat is supplied by the air, the surface temperature rises until it reaches the dry bulb temperature of the drying air. Most heat damage to food can therefore occur in the falling rate period, and the air temperature is controlled to balance the rate of drying and extent of heat damage. So most heat transfer is by convection from the drying air to the surface of the food, but there may also be heat transfer by radiation. If the food is dried in solid trays, there will also be conduction through the tray to the food. So calculation of heat transfer is therefore often very complex in drying systems. The falling rate period is usually the longest part of a drying operation, and in some foods, for example, grain drying, The initial moisture content is below the critical moisture content, and the falling rate period is the only part of the drying curve to be observed. During the falling rate period, the factors that control the rate of drying change. Initially, the important factors are similar to those in the constant rate period, but gradually the rate of water movement becomes the controlling factor. So water moves from the interior of the food to the surface by certain mechanisms like liquid movement by capillary forces, particularly in porous foods. Then diffusion of liquids caused by differences in the concentration of solutes at the surface and in the interior of the food. Then diffusion of liquids which are absorbed in layers at the surface of solid components of the food. Last one, water vapor diffusion in air within the food caused by vapor pressure gradients. Other factors which influence the rate of drying include the composition and the structure of the food that has an influence on mechanism of moisture removal. So for example, the orientation of fibers in vegetables and the protein strand in meat allows more rapid moisture movement along their length and across the structure. So similarly, moisture is removed more easily from intercellular spaces than from within the cells. Rupturing cells by blanching or size reduction increases the rate of drying out. That may adversely affect the texture of the rehydrated product. Additionally, high concentration of solutes such as sugar, salts, gums, starches, etc., they may increase the viscosity and lower the water activity and thus reduce the rate of moisture movement. The next is the amount of food placed into the dryer is in relation to its capacity. That is, in a given dryer, faster drying is achieved with smaller quantities of food. Next is about the hot dryers. The cost of fuel for heating air is the main economic factor affecting drying operations, and commercial dryers have a number of features that are designed to reduce heat losses or to save energy. Some of them are insulation of cabinets and ducting, the recirculation of exhaust air through the drying chamber, provided a high outlet temperature can be tolerated by the product and the reduction in evaporative capacity, that is acceptable one. Next is recovering heat from the exhaust air to heat incoming air using heat exchangers or thermal wheels, or for warming the feed material. Next, to use of direct flame heating by natural gas and low nitrogen oxide burners to reduce product contamination by the product of combustion. Next is drying in two stages. Example, fluidized beds, followed by bin drying or spray drying, followed by fluidized bed drying. Next is pre-concentrating liquid foods to the highest solids content possible using multiple effect evaporation. Energy used per unit mass of water removed in evaporators can be several orders of magnitude less than that required for dehydration. Next is automatic control of air humidity by computer control. So we'll discuss one by one the types. The first one is bin dryers. The bin dryers are large cylindrical or rectangular containers fitted with mesh base. The hot air passes up through a bed of food at relatively low velocities. They have a high capacity and low capital and running cost, and are mainly used for finishing, that is 3 to 6% moisture content after initial drying in other types of dryers. They improve the operating capacity of initial dryers by removing the food when it is in the falling rate period, when moisture removal is most time consuming. The debed of food permits variation in moisture content to be equalized and act as a store to smooth out fluctuations. The dryers may be several meters high, and it is therefore important that foods are sufficiently strong to withstand compression and thus retain spaces between pieces to permit the passage of hot air through the bed. In this table, characteristics of dryers were given. The type of dryer, bin, cabinet, then batch or continuous, solid or liquid, the characteristics of food that has been given, initial moisture content, heat sensitive, size of pieces that should be mechanically strong, then drying conditions like drying rate, final moisture content, typical maximum evaporative capacity, and what are the food items that were used has been given. The next type of dryer is cabinet or tray dryers. So these consist of an insulated cabinet fitted with shallow mesh or perforated trays, each of which contains a thin layer of food. Hot air is blown through a system of duct and baffles to promote uniform air distribution throughout the tray. So additional heaters may be placed above or alongside the trays to increase the rate of drying. Tray dryers are used for small scale production or for pilot scale work also. So they have low capital maintenance cost and are flexible in operation for different foods. So they have relatively poor control and produce more variable product quality as food dries more rapidly on trays nearest to the heat source. At low cost, semi-continuous mechanism which overcome this problem by periodically replacing the lowest tray in the stack has been developed by intermediate technology development group. So here you can see the comparison of the technology with solar dryers and large scale systems is shown here in this table. The type of dryers like Braze solar dryer, solar cabinet, McDowell dryer, wood burning cabinet dryer, ITDG batch dryer, then some of the cabinet dryers, more large tunnel dryer and all. Then its cost has been given, then capacity, then investment, fuel efficiency, and labor requirements. Next is about tunnel dryers. The layers of foods are dried on trays that are stocked on trucks programmed to move semi-continuously through an insulated tunnel, having one or more types of airflow that you can see in this table. So food is finished in bin dryers, typically a 20-meter tunnel containing 12 to 15 trucks with a total capacity of 5,000 kg of food. So this ability to dry large quantities of food in a relatively short time made tunnel drying that could be used widely. Then, however, the method has now been largely used by conveyor drying and defluidized bed drying as a result of high energy efficiency. So in this table, you can see the advantages and limitations of flow, different flow, that is like parallel, current, center exhaust, and cross flow drying. The type of air flow has been used. Then the advantages and their limitations. Next is about conveyor dryers or belt dryers. So the continuous conveyor dryers, they are up to 20-meter long and 30-meter wide. Food is dried on a mesh belt in beds 5 to 15 centimeter deep. The airflow is initially directed upwards to the bed of food and then downwards in later stages to prevent dried food from blowing out of the bed. So in the figure, you can see the 2 or 3 stage dryers mix and repile the partly dried food into deeper beds. So this improves uniformity of drying and saves flow space. So foods are dry to 15% approximately moisture content and then finished in bin dryers. So this equipment has good control over drying conditions and high production rates. So it is used for large scale drying of foods. Dryers may have computer controlled independent drying zones and automatic loading and unloading to reduce labor cost. Then the second application of conveyor dryer is format drying, in which liquid foods are formed into a stable form by the addition of a stabilizer and aeration with nitrogen or air. So format drying is approximately 3 times faster than drying a similar thickness of liquid. The thin porous mat of dried food is then ground into free-flowing powder, which has good rehydration properties. Rapid drying and low product temperature results in a high quality product, but a large surface area is required for high production rates and capital cost, and therefore high. Then a further variation in trough dryers or belt trough dryers, in which small uniform pieces of food are dried in a mesh conveyor belt that hangs freely between the rollers to form shape of a trough. So hot air is blown through the bed of food, and the movement of the conveyor mixes and turn the food to bring new surface continually into contact with the drying air. So the mixture action also moves food away from the drying air, and this allows time for moisture to move from inside the pieces to the dry surfaces. The surface moisture is then rapidly evaporated when the food again contacts the hot air. So these dryers have high drying rates, high energy efficiencies, good control, and minimal heat damage to the product. So they operate in 2 stages, to 50 to 60% moisture, and then to 15 to 20% moisture before finishing in bin dryers. Next is about fluidized bed dryers. The main features of a fluidized bed dryer are distributor to evenly distribute the air at a uniform velocity around the bed of material. So a plenum chamber below the distributor to produce an homogeneous region of air and prevent localized high velocities, and a disengagement or free board region above the bed to allow disentrainment of particles thrown up by the air. So air from the fluidized bed is usually fed into separate fine particles, which are then added back to the product or agglomerated. So these dryers are compact and have good control over drying conditions and high drying rates. So in batch operation, the product is thoroughly mixed by fluidization, and this leads to uniform moisture content. In continuous operations, the trays vibrate to move the food under gravity from one tray to the next. So there is a greater range of moisture content in the dried product, and bin dryers are used for finishing. The main applications are for small particulate foods that are capable of being fluidized without excessive mechanical damage, including yeast, grains, herbs, coconut, desiccated coconut, sugar, and tea. So in the development of fluidized bed dryer, topped dryer, that is another fluidized bed of particle that could be seen in the next figure, is made to rotate around a torus-shaped chamber by hot air blown directly from burner. The dryer has very high rate of heat and mass transfer, and substantially reduced drying time. So large pieces require a period of moisture equilibrium before final drying. The dryer has microprocessor control and is suitable for agglomeration in addition to roasting, cooking, and coating applications. In this figure, you can see the topped dryer. The first is rotating disc distributed to deliver a raw material evenly into processing chamber. The second is rotating bed of particles. The third is fixed blades with hot gas passing through at high velocity. And the fourth is burner assembly. The next is about kiln dryer. So these are two two-layered buildings in which a drying room with a slatted floor is located above a furnace. Hot air and the product of combustion from the furnace pass through a bed of food, like up to 20 centimeter deep. They have been used traditionally for drying apple rings in many parts like USA, Europe, but there is limited control over drying conditions and drying time that are relatively long. High labor costs are also incurred by the need to turn the product regularly and by manual loading and unloading. So, however, the dryers also have larger capacity and are easily constructed and maintained at low cost. The next is about pneumatic dryers. So, in these dryers, moist powder or particulate foods, usually less than 40% moisture and particle size that range between 10 to 500 micrometer, are metered into metal ducting and suspended in hot air. In vertical dryers, the airflow is adjusted so that lighter and smaller particles, they have the lighter and smaller particles which dry more rapidly, are carried to a cyclone separator more rapidly than the heavier and wetter particles that remain suspended to receive the additional drying required. For products that require a longer residence time, the ducting is formed into a continuous loop, that is pneumatic ring dryers, and the product is recirculated until it is adequately dried. High temperature short time ring dryers, or can be called as flash dryers, they are used to expand the starch in potatoes or carrots to give a rigid porous structure that improves both subsequent conventional drying and rehydration rates. Then next is about rotary dryers. They are slightly inclined, rotating metal cylinder that is fitted internally with flights to cause the food to cascade through a stream of parallel or counter current hot air as it moves through the dryer. The large surface area of food exposed to the air produces high drying rates and a uniformly dried product. The method is especially suitable for foods that tend to mat or stick together in belt or tray dryers. However, the damage caused by impact and abrasion in the dryer restricts this method to relatively few foods, for example, nuts, cocoa beans, and all. So, to overcome this problem, a variation of the design named a rotary dryer, in which a longitudinal things are positions to form an inner drum, has been introduced. Next is about spray dryers. A fine dispersion of pre-concentrated food is first atomized to form fine droplets and then sprayed into countercurrent flow of heated air at 150 to 300 degrees centigrade in a large drying chamber. So different types of atomizer has been used, like centrifugal atomizer, pressure nozzle atomizer, two fluid nozzle atomizer, or ultrasonic nozzle atomizer. So the next is about sun and solar drying. The sun drying is the most widely practiced agricultural processing operations. In some countries, foods are simply laid out in fields or in roofs or other flat surface. More sophisticated methods, that is solar drying, they collect solar energy and heat air, which in turn is used for drying. Solar dryers are classified into direct natural circulation dryers, that is a combined collector and drying chamber. The second is direct dryers with a separate collector. The third is indirect forced convection dryers, that is separate collector and drying chamber. So both solar and sun drying, they are simple, inexpensive technologies in terms of both capital input and operating cost. Energy inputs and skilled labor are not required, and in sun drying, very large amount of crop can be dried at low cost. So the major disadvantages are relatively poor control over drying conditions and lower drying rates than those found in artificial dryers, that results in products that have lower quality and greater variability. In addition, drying is dependent on the weather and the energy inputs and skilled labor, they are not required. And in sun drying, very large amount of crop can be dried at low cost. So the major disadvantages are relatively poor control over drying conditions and lower drying rates than those found in artificial dryers that results in that have lower quality and greater variability. So next is about heat surface or contact dryers. So dryers in which the heat is applied to the food by conduction have two main advantages over hot air drying. That is one, it is not necessary to heat large volumes of air before drying commences, and the thermal efficiency is therefore high. The second is drying may be carried out in the absence of oxygen to protect components of foods that are easily oxidized. The next types we'll see, the first is drum dryer or roller dryers. So slowly rotating hollow steel drums that are heated internally by pressurized steams to 120 to 170 degrees centigrade. A thin layer of food is spread uniformly over the outer surface of dipping, spraying, spreading, or by auxiliary feed rollers. So before the drum has completed one revolution, the dried food is scraped off by a blade which contacts the drum surface uniformly along its length. So the single drum is widely used as it is has greater flexibility. You can see in the figure a large proportion of the drum area available for drying. There is easier access for maintenance and no risk of damage caused by metal objects falling between the drums. So drum dryers have high drying rates and high energy efficiency, and they are suitable for slurries in which the particles are too large for spray drying. Drum drying is used to produce potato flakes, pre-cooked cereals, molasses, some dried soups, etc. So, however, the high capital cost of the machined drums and heat damage to sensitive foods caused by high drum temperatures have caused a move to spray drying for many bulk dried foods. The next is a vacuum band and vacuum shelf dryers. So a food slurry is spread or sprayed onto steel belt or band, which passes over two hollow drums within a vacuum dryer. The food is dried by the first steam heated drum and then by steam heated coils or radiant heaters located over the band. The dried food is cooled by the second water cooled drum and removed by a next blade. So the vacuum shelf dryers consist of hollow shells in a vacuum dryer. Food is placed in a thin layers or flat metal trays that are carefully made to ensure good contact with the shells. Then a partial vacuum is drawn in the chamber and steam or hot water is passed through the shells to dry the food. Rapid drying and limited heat damage to the food make both methods suitable for heat sensitive foods. In the table, you can see the types of contact dryers. That is the type of dryer like a vacuum tray, vacuum band, plate, thin film, rotating batch, horizontally agitated, indirect rotatory and all. Then batch or continuous type thing has been mentioned. Then vacuum or atmospheric has been mentioned. Then the type of feed used, then production rate and typical applications for certain foods has also been seen here. In this table, the summary of some novel drying techniques has been seen. That is the techniques like microwave or whatever it is, microwave, augmented freeze drying, centrifuge fluidized bed drying, ball drying, ultrasonic or explosive puff drying, their applications. That is high value product, small particles, vegetable pieces, powders and all. Then advantages, at what temperatures it has been used and all, how is it being used, and their limitations also could be seen in this tabular column. Next is about effect on food. So all products that undergo changes during drying and storage that reduces their quality composed to the fresh material, and the aim of improved drying technologies is to is to minimize these changes while maximizing process efficiency. So the main changes to dried foods are to the texture and loss of flavor or aroma, but changes in color and nutritional value are also significant in some foods. So first we'll see about the texture. The changes to the texture of solid foods are an important cause of quality deterioration. The nature and extent of pre-treatments, the type and extent of size reduction and peeling each affect the texture of rehydrated fruits and vegetables. So the loss of texture in these products is caused by gelatinization of starch, crystallization of cellulose, and localized variations in the moisture content during drying, which set up internal stresses. So these ruptures crack, compress, and permanently distort the relatively rigid cells to give the food in shrunken appearance. So on rehydration, the product absorbs water more slowly and does not regain the firm texture of the fresh material. Then the drying pieces of meat is not common in many countries owing to their severe change in texture compared with other method of preservations. They are caused by aggregation and denature of proteins and the loss of water holding capacity, which leads to toughening of muscle tissue. So the textural characteristics of powders are related to their bulk density and the ease with which they rehydrated. The bulk density of powders depends on the size of the dried particle and on whether they are hollow or solid. This is determined by the nature and composition of the food and drying conditions. Low-fat foods, for example, fruit juices, potato, coffee, are more easily formed into free-flowing powders than are whole milk or meat extracts. So powders are instantiated that is by the treating individual particles so that they stick together to form free-flowing addenomas. So in the table you can see the approximate ratio of drying, shrinkage, and rehydration of selected vegetables. The drying ratios, overall shrinkage ratios, rehydration ratios, and all. And the next table you can see the bulk density and moisture content of selected powdered foods, like the type of foods like cocoa, coffee, egg, milk, and all. Their bulk density and moisture content is also mentioned here. The next effect is flavor and aroma. So heat not only vaporizes water during drying but also causes loss of volatile components from the food, and as a result most dried foods have less flavor than the original material. The extent of volatile loss depends on the temperature and moisture content of the food and on the vapor pressure of the volatiles and their solubility in water vapor. So there are certain changes that are reduced, like vacuum or gas packing, low storage temperature, exclusion of ultraviolet or visible light, maintenance of low moisture content, addition of synthetic antioxidants, and preservation of natural antioxidants. So there are many other methods that are used to retain flavors in dried foods that includes recovery of volatiles and their return to the product during drying. The next is mixing recovered volatiles with flavor fixing components, which are then granulated and added back to the dried product. The last is addition of enzymes or activation of naturally occurring enzymes to produce flavors from flavor precursors in the food. The next effect is on color. There are a number of causes of color loss or change in dried foods. Drying changes the surface characteristics of a food and hence alters reflectivity and color. In fruits and vegetables, chemical changes to carotenoid and chlorophyll pigments are caused by heat and oxidation during drying and residual polyphenol oxidase enzyme activity that cause browning during storage process and all. So this is prevented by blanching or treatment of fruits with ascorbic acid or sulfuric acid. So for moderately sulfured fruits and vegetables, the rate of darkening during storage is inversely proportional to the residual sulfur dioxide content. So however, sulfur dioxide bleaches anthocyanins, and residual sulfur dioxide is also linked to health concern. So its use in dried products is now restricted in many countries as well. The next is about nutritional value. So large difference in reported data on nutritional value of dried foods are due to their variations in the preparation procedures, the drying temperature and time, and the storage conditions. So in fruit and vegetables, losses during preparation usually exceeds those caused by the drying operation. So the one of the examples could given like vitamins have different solubilities in water, and as drying proceeds, some that is, for example, like for riboflavin, that becomes super saturated and precipitate from solutions. So loss are small. So in the table, you can see the vitamin losses in selected dried foods like fruits, fig, whole milk, whole that is spray dried and drum dried, pork vegetables, and the loss percentage has also been mentioned here for vitamin A, thiamine, vitamin B2, niacin, vitamin C, folic acid, biotin. Then oil soluble nutrients, they are mostly contained within the dry matter of the food that are not concentrated during drying. However, water is a solvent for heavy metal catalyst that promote oxidation of unsaturated nutrients. As water is removed, the catalyst become more reactive and the rate of oxidation accelerates. So fat soluble vitamins are lost by interaction with the peroxides that are produced by fat oxidation. Losses during storage are reduced by lowering the oxygen concentration and the storage temperature and by exclusion of light. So the biological value and digestibility of proteins in most foods does not change substantially as a result of this drying. So the milk proteins are partially denatured during drum drying, and this results in a reduction in solubility of the milk powder and loss of clotting ability. So these are all about dehydration. So that's all about dehydration. Thank you.